All right, guys, we're back. We've refilled our drinks. We took a
Cheers.
piss, and we got a charcuterie board now. So we're snacking. And my partners here, they brought up a good point. While we were off camera here a little while ago, and they asked me, what's the real reason for this podcast? Why did you start this podcast? Why is it that you want people to hear you and check you out and see your podcast? And we started to get into more of a deeper conversation and a true raw conversation, which is what we're aiming for here in this podcast. And it made me think, why am I doing this podcast? Why am I trying to reach all this audience? And the real reason is, some of us, and not just in law enforcement, but all first responders, we see a lot of serious traumatic things, and I mean, it could be multiple times in one shift. It's not just a one time thing, and we deal with that and we take that home and we live with it, and some of us can live with it a little better than others, and as you guys know, we've all witnessed it and we've all lived it, and we've had we've had partners that have taken their own lives, due to this job, due to the stress of this job, due to the things that we see, and that's really why we're doing this podcast. We want people to know that we're here for each other, and when you're going through it and when you're feeling, you're feeling like the world is closing in on you and you don't have nobody, you know you do have somebody, you know at least we're lucky enough that we have each other, and we work with each other on a day-to-day basis. We see fucked up shit every day, but we talk about it, we debrief it, and we go about it, or we try to go about it the best way possible, so that obviously it's always going to have an impact on you, it's always going to live with you, but we have good peer support among us three, and we just we have a good support system, and we're able to push through serious stuff like that, and obviously a little bit of alcohol helps. Not that not that that's the answer. Don't go and get fucked
Now, you,
up and say, "Hey, I saw it on the podcast."
you, now you said alcohol, not copious amounts of.
Exactly.
Okay,
I'm
just
glad you
a little bit,
clarified it, because
just a little bit of alcohol.
it happens. It happens. I mean, it's happened to us. It could happen. Obviously, alcohol is not the answer. But when you're out and about with your buddies and you're having a good time and you're relieving stress, it definitely helps. And just so you guys know, if you guys anybody out there watching this that feels down, that feels like they don't have anybody, reach out to us. Reach out. Leave a comment. Our emails on there. Email us. We're here. We're here for everybody. Know that we're all one. Whether you're blue line, red line, green line, whatever line you represent. We're yeah, we're all here, and even if you're not in a first responder and you watch us and you support us and you need something, you need
Or
help, you
somebody
need something
interested
from us,
in
or yeah,
becoming
somebody that
first
wants to
responder.
be a first responder. We're all here. We're all one big family. And that's something that I am very proud of, and something that I can say and hold my chest up high and say, yeah, we're a family. We are more than partners. We are solid. I'd take a bullet for any of you any day. You know, Even though Sanchez would say, I would never let you take a bullet for me because I'll take the bullet first. You know, but that's just the humbleness of the man. And having a good partner. Both of you guys are solid partners.
He checks what?
He checks the ego at the door, and that's his favorite line, and that's something we're gonna close with once the podcast is over. But it's a good line, and it's a very humbling one at that. I think a lot of people forget that. When you don the uniform, and sometimes you feel like a fucking superhero, and you feel like you can do anything, and the reality is we're all human, right? And like you said earlier, those guys, those detectives, those bomb guys, they came into work like any other day and never went home. And that could happen. That could happen to anybody. So that the uniform doesn't make us, invincible or bulletproof, but it's something. And I'm glad that here, we're all on the same page. And to segue into something else, I did have a couple
Can
questions.
I stop you just
Yeah, go ahead.
for 1 sec there? And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, and it almost feels, uh, almost needed, and I'm hoping I don't take away from anything because I know dead air is pretty much a no-no when you're doing a podcast or any type of
Yeah.
broadcast. But I was hoping if I'm not quite sure how it would stand or how it would be perceived, or quite frankly, I don't think it really matters. But between the three of us or whoever's happened to watch on this first segment, I don't. I think it'd be apropos or appropriate or even respectful if maybe we just take 30 seconds of just absolute silence and just reflect on those three
Well,
that
you know what?
passed away.
I did think about that when we started this podcast, and I think we should do the full honor, and we'll take a minute of silence. The way it should be, and just just sit here for a minute in silence and just embrace it and show that respect. And we just let us know when the minute is over. So
I can. I mean, again, I can time us. I have it here
yeah,
ready to
perfect.
go.
Let's do it. But I think and I appreciate that. I did think about that. When we started the podcast, I think that's important. Because we do that all the time. And I think that I'm glad you brought it up and you want to do the 30 seconds, but I think we should do the full minute, and show the full respect these guys deserve. I mean, these guys
Okay.
were some solid guys. Did their job. I mean, one guy had 33 years on, man, ready to retire.
I
You
knew
know
one
what
of
I
them
mean?
actually, and
Yeah,
he's a good dude,
and that's what
extremely
I'm saying. Like,
knowledgeable.
let's show them the respect that they need, and you guys watching, hopefully you guys could take that minute of silence with us and just just sit with it, and just think about it. So whenever you're ready, Sench, go ahead and start the
Okay,
minute.
starts now.
All right.
May they rest in peace.
Hey, rest in peace. Thank you for that, Sench. I really appreciate that. That I did think about that earlier before we started the podcast, and I think
Well, I know dead air is a no-no,
yeah.
but I
Well, you
don't
know
know.
what? But in this situation, especially in this podcast, and what we stand for, as law enforcement officers, and the people that we back up, I think that it was called for. I think that it's we should show our respect for our fallen and our brothers. I mean, these guys are. So you know this guy, you worked with him, and we obviously work for we work together, and it's really important, and I really truly appreciate that you took the time to do that. And I know we had other we are gonna go a different route, and I do have a couple questions for you guys, before we finish this podcast. And for you guys watching, if you guys have any questions for us or any questions in general, that you guys want to ask, we are gonna have a lot of
Honestly,
other
even if
guest
you want to
speakers.
talk shit and say it sucks, I don't care. Whatever you want to do,
Yeah, we can take it,
we can
right?
take
We
it. We
can
have
take
thick
it.
skin.
They talk shit to us every shift, so nothing new, and but yeah, if you do have any questions for us or for anybody or anything anything you guys are curious about, we are gonna have you know different people on the podcast. We're gonna have firefighters. We're gonna have other law enforcement officers. We're gonna have a psychologist here talking about the effects of PTSD and everything that we see. We are gonna have like I said, the coroner investigator. Some mortician. And just talk about different things and things that connect to everything that we do on a daily basis. And so yeah, if you guys have any questions for us, feel free. Feel free to leave a comment, ask your question. We'll try our best, to answer it. And with that being said, I I know I had a couple questions for you, but I did have a good story, about me and her, about with those gangsters at the light. You never know.
Oh,
You never know when your time's coming.
man.
And whether you're religious or you're not, and you whatever you believe in, we're not here to judge anybody. We accept everybody as they come, obviously, you know. But that day, I'm all bullshit aside and all ego aside. I'm glad and I'm happy that I was there that day, and because I truly felt, had I not been there, something could have happened to her. And
You might as well just get into it.
yeah,
Nobody knows what you're talking about.
So yeah,
Just do it. Just do it. We're waiting with bated breath.
So the story behind that is, obviously, we all work together, and sometimes we ride together, and sometimes we don't.
I wasn't here for this.
Yeah, you weren't there, and sometimes, sometimes we're in the same car, and sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're in different cars, but given that we're so close and we're always going to everything together, I think we are gonna get the ice cream that day or something like that, the mangoneada or something like that, and something that we do every day. We're always looking for an ice cream spot, or a snack shop, something. So if you own an ice cream spot or a snack shop, go ahead and leave us a comment. We'll go and visit you. We're always looking for the next great thing, right? But going off with that story, she was at a light. Well, we were both at a light. I was right behind her. She had a gray Nissan Altima in her blind spot. 4 gangsters, sitting in the car, and I'm in the gangsters' blind spot. And I just remember, I could tell, body language, and obviously I can't hear what they're saying, but based on the body language, they're pointing at her, they're looking around, they're nodding their head, like they're about to do something. And something just told me, it wasn't right. Something just told me, hey, dude, like pay attention to these guys, and like people say, you start feeling the hairs in your back, in the back of your neck starting to, come up. And so sure enough, I open the door slightly. I put one foot down on the ground, and my gun is out, and I'm ready to go. And I'm just, my priority is her, and just making sure that she's safe. And
I believe you told me what you saw was what they would describe as furtive movements in the car that were somewhat indicative of somebody getting ready to pull a gun on her.
Yeah, something
like that.
Yeah, they're pointing at her, they're looking around, they're all nodding their head yes, like they're targeting her, and I can see all this, like I said, I'm in their blind spot. And so I'm like, hey, it's not gonna happen today, and I had already made the decision that it wasn't gonna happen. And I made the conscious decision that I was gonna take care of my partner. And I had my foot out the door, and I had my gun out, just ready, ready to go, and ready to defend her, and ready to defend the both of us. And for some, like I said, whatever you believe in, or whatever you pray to every night, the guy sitting behind the passenger, the fourth person sitting behind the passenger, he happens to turn around and sees me ready to go, and right away, and that just kind of like, you know, completed my what I was believing. And I was like, okay, this was, I didn't just make this up in my head. Like, this was happening. Yeah, the moment he turned around and saw me, it confirmed everything for me. Like she said, the guy looks at me and turns around right away and starts like tapping the guys and shaking his head no, like abort mission almost, and I don't know why that light took forever, huh? It just, that light just was red for the longest. And finally, as they're going no and shaking their head like abort mission, the light turns green and they make a left. And then finally our light turns green and we keep going straight. And obviously, after I felt like we were safe, I call her. I'm like, dude, did you just not see what happened?
So, in your personal opinion, do you think had you not been there, something detrimental would have happened to
100%. They weren't your upstanding citizen. You know
yeah.
what I mean? They're in a and I know it's funny because people use that on memes all the time, like, oh, we chased the Nissan Altima, you know, and
Right, right.
but it was a great Nissan Altima, and there were four gangsters in the car, you know, and yeah, I think had I not been there, you know, something could have happened to her, and but that, you know, on the other side of the token, you know, I that's why I believe that sometimes we're where we need to be at the right place at the right time, you know, and that happened to be, you know, one of those times, and just and like I said, it's not an ego thing. It's not, you know, oh man, I saved my partner's life. I mean, that's what we're here for, you know, and not just that, but you know,
You were there to
it's a,
back your partner up. Period.
like always, you know, I'm always here for my
You had
partners,
to
but
back your partner up.
it's also I think it's also a very good point to hit as far as being aware of your surroundings and being aware of how you could be in a blind spot. You know what I mean? Like you can look left and right, everything's good, you know, but you're in a blind spot. You know what I mean? And sometimes that happens. And like you say all the time, hey, never pull up next to a window. Always pull up either, you know, before or after, but just make sure you know, make sure you got the drop. You know? But you know, on another note, and I just wanted to share that story because sometimes, you know, people don't realize things like that bond you as well. You know, and there's, like I said, there's obviously people don't know us, and you know, maybe they will start to know us as we progress and start making new podcasts. But you know, there's a reason why we're so close. You know, and especially like me and her, you know, we've been partners for a very long time, and you know, we've been through a lot of stuff together. And I just hope that it's gonna, you know, it's always gonna be like that. And we're always gonna have each other's back and always have a good time. And you know, but with that being said, you know, on a different note, I did have, like I said earlier, I did have a couple questions for you guys, and I think this is a question that, you know, you can get real deep into it, but it's a real question, and I think it it hits home for a lot of people. And the question is, do you have a different perspective of people or society now that you've been in law enforcement for a while, you know, than you did before? You know, before you joined the department or before, you know, you were in law enforcement.
So yeah, I think like it changes. It changes in the way, especially when it's hard to switch to make that switch from being off duty and on duty. You know, like and
How
seeing people differently. Not in a way where it's like
can I ask you why? Why is it
I
hard
think
for you?
I think it's the experiences that you go through on duty that make you see things different. You know, like the people that you contact. I mean, some of them are nice people, obviously, but the people that we deal with, that we get calls for, obviously aren't. You know, and so it's like it changes your perspective on like,
Well,
oh my god, like
we do see the worst of the worst.
yeah,
Well,
like it's
it's like they say too. It's, you know, when you get a call for service, you're usually going to something where somebody is not having their best day.
right.
Yeah, very true.
You know, if somebody's having a spectacular day, there's usually no need for their
Right.
presence.
But you come in not thinking that way. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you come in like, oh, okay, like it's a call for service, like, but as your time on the department, or you know, your career goes by,
Right.
and you start experiencing, you know, different things and different scenarios and different situations,
Mm.
and you know, and it's like you start seeing things different, more of like on your safety and the safety of your partners and the safety
Your family,
of
because
the
you're off
family
duty, right?
of yeah, exactly, and people that are out, you know, there, that are have nothing to do with what's going on, you know, but it's like your duty is to protect them as well, you know. And I remember, you know, like my experience, I remember going with my family into
Yeah.
this was years ago. I had, and it was funny because I had just started, you know, on the department, and um but I had seen a few things that like it just wakens you, from the good and the bad. You know what I mean? And I remember we got to a Denny's to eat, and we
Right.
started walking towards the Denny's, and I remember there was a car parked right in front, and it just seemed sketchy. You know what I mean? Like it seemed like something was up. They were either selling something, looking for someone. Like it was sketchy, and right away, like your radar just hits like, okay, something's up here. Something's up. Like something's not right. And I remember walking by, and I'm making eye contact with this guy, and forgetting that, hey, I'm just a regular person walking down the street. And I just remember making eye contact with this person, and it's like I remember just like saying like, hey dude, like what's
Like a
going
nod,
on? Yeah, like
yeah.
a nod of like, what are you doing,
Gangster
dude?
nod.
I remember like just like what's going, and he took it the wrong way, because obviously, I'm just walking down the street like a regular person, you know what I mean? So he, on his end, I'm thinking he probably took it like, what's up, girl? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm literally like, what are you doing? And so I think it changes you to make you more cautious, more observant, a lot more observant. Like now, like being at crowds, it just you're more trying to be more aware of your surroundings, aware of where you are, like where the exits are, like especially being with Sanchez, it increases a little more, because he rubs it on you, like,
Right.
hey dude, like where you at, which is a good thing. It's a good thing.
But I mean, it's. Do you think that you were that way before?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
Everything was
It changes
part and
you.
parcel to the way you were trained,
It
and
changes
it
you.
it was almost like a paradigm shift.
Exactly. It changes you completely, and I think it's a good thing, and I think it's something that people might not understand, like, civilian wise, where it's like, oh, you're just paranoid, or dude, it's nothing, and it's like, no, like something's up, something's wrong, and I don't know, it's something that you see, and it's like your example, where it's like you felt like something was up, and I had no idea what was going on, because I'm sitting at a red light, and yeah, I'm looking around, but it's like they're literally in my blind spot. I have no idea that these guys are back here, and I just, when he calls me and tells me, dude, like his voice, like I still remember his voice. He was like, dude, did you just not see these guys right behind you? And I'm like, what? I'm like, what guys?
Yeah,
I'm like
and dude, it was
super
like
lost.
a voice of like a big brother.
Yeah.
It was a voice of, dude. I was legit worried for her, and I was
Yeah.
legit fucking shitting my pants. I
So
was scared. I wasn't just scared for her, but I was scared for what was coming. Because I had already made up my mind, and I knew, the moment I saw a gun pointed towards her car, it was gonna be over.
So B, let me ask you a question. From that point going forward, I'm sure you've been checking your rearview mirror now. You've been
I
checking.
make sure to
You've
turn
been
all the
you've been
way.
checking your right and left. You've been checking every 8
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah. No, it when I'm not gonna lie. I mean, when he told me that, and he told me what he saw, and everything, I was just like, oh my god, like it was a moment of a shocking moment. I didn't know what to say. I was just like, what in the world? Like I could have just died right now.
And something that I, to piggyback off of that, and especially like you say sometimes, you know me, I'm always bullshitting at work. I'm always the clown and having a good time, and just making fun of stuff, and just laughing. And so if I call you and it's a serious call, you know what I mean? Like for her, for example, like me and her, we're always talking shit. I'm always clowning on her. The moment I called her and it wasn't an insult, or it wasn't like, and she was just like, oh shit, like this was serious. You know what I mean? It's like you're never on the radio. You could be in a fight and you're not on the radio. And it's like the moment you say, hey, I need some help, I need somebody over here.
That's serious.
It's serious. As humble as you put it, I was like, oh, I just need somebody over here. That means it's serious, But yeah, but I just wanted to say that, it's it just hits different. You know, like she said, you know, when I called her, I was like, dude, like, what the fuck? You know, it was just one of those moments, you know, that just like, dude, like, what the fuck just happened? You know, and like I said, I'm never a serious guy at work. You know, I'm always laughing and talking shit, and so obviously, you know, when she got that call and I called her, I'm like, dude, like, I'm as serious as could be. I'm just as surprised as she is. You know, she's like, dude, what? You know,
That's
but yeah,
probably it's the it's the fact that we like to joke. You
yeah,
know, in this line of work, it's and this is what I would want to project to a lot of people that may not understand our lives or more or less the the culture behind the scenes. They're always at the receiving end. I mean, those that know, they know, but those that don't, that are sitting behind the passenger, you know, sitting in the passenger seat or behind the driver's seat, and they get pulled over, they don't know that a lot of it, you know, the joking around or the laughing, it's to a certain extent kind of like a coping mechanism because the harsh reality is the alternate of walking up to a car when you pull it over and somebody immediately comes out and just starts shooting at you is something that you have to be prepared
Yeah,
for.
yeah, and I think that's totally
And
true.
I'm saying this across the board for anybody that's in the field. I don't
Yeah,
care side. If you're in a car and you're out on the street and you're driving,
yeah,
and in no uncertain terms, there are individuals out there that could care less
yeah,
what uniform you're wearing. Once they see that you're associated with law enforcement, you could be a potential target. So you have to keep that in the back of your mind, and it's nerve wracking. So in a way, we cope with it with humor.
humor. Yeah, no, I agree, and I think
Sometimes,
that's what helps a lot because if we were to just focus on that, like, oh my god, like I almost died, and stick to that, I feel like we mentally just go into a state of even depression. You know what I mean? And I think that's
paranoia.
paranoia. Yeah, I think and that's the reason why, like, there's a lot of people that fall into what you know they fall into because of it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to separate yourself from those experiences. And it's good to have partners and like that where it's like they're there for you, and they'll
mhm.
bring in the humor and it makes your day better and it makes your shift go by faster, and it's like you can confide in them, you can trust them, that they're there for you. So that's, I mean, it it just changes you completely. We go back to that question, like, it changes you completely
Changes you forever.
forever.
Yeah, and you know, and to piggyback off that, you know, the especially like us, you know, we see the worst of the worst, and the reality is, you know, yeah, there's some great, beautiful people out there, you know, that respect us and that shows that respect, or you know, whatever that may be. Yeah, thank us for our service, or with that being
Well,
said,
we never
you know,
know. We never know with the tinted windows.
100%.
Once the
And
tinted windows, once those tinted windows come down, then
you know,
oh,
and I was
okay,
gonna
now we know
say,
what we got.
you know, if you remember that dude in the red truck that we pulled over, you know, dude, me and Sancho are at a light, and this guy's like just flies through the light. You know, like we're having a hard time catching up to this guy. You know, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, the red truck,
there's a
and
red truck doing about 70, 75 miles an hour down a
right there
residential
by the
street.
horses. Yeah, you know, me and Sancho, we're having a hard time catching up to this guy. You know, and that road, that road is I mean, it's just a fucked up road. You know, and we'll eventually catch up to this guy, and you know, we don't know what this guy's intentions are, and you know, and that was another example of how we have each other's back. And before the guy was yielding and he wasn't fully stopped, but I already had my door open, ready to jump out, ready to go. You know, probably me, because Angela was driving. So, but I already had my door out open, ready to go, and I just knew, as the bookman, that was my job, and I was gonna have, as I pulled up to the window, I jumped out, pulled up to the window, and the guy was all distracted looking at me. By the time Sanchez, when Sanchez came up on his window, he was like, and I said, hey, dude, talk to my partner. This it's his handle, but we had each other's back, and I think it was a good stop. We were ready to go, and the guy was so scared when he saw us jump out of the car.
Yeah.
He was like, and he even said after, he was a cool guy, and like I said, we gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I mean, we even hooked him up, and obviously he took the and Sanchez could explain a little further, but he did take the citation for the speeding, because he had no choice, he was gonna get it, but we still cut him a break, and we were cordial with the guy the whole time, and he was cordial with us, and he was laughing, having a good time, and you know whatever the case may be, but what I'm going with is at the time when we jumped out of the car, the dude knew we meant business. I mean, the guy had his hands out the window, and when after the fact, after everything, he told us like, dude, I knew you guys were not fucking around when I saw you guys jump out of that car, and I think that's Sanchez was like a mile out already, hanging out the door.
But I think the whole point of the story is that it's more so just making a point that the camaraderie was there and partners are looking out for each other, and we're trying to do a job, just trying to make sure that we're always working safely, doing things well within the scope of the nature and scope of our job, that working within the parameters of what our requirements are.
Yeah, and I think that they obviously showed that we did that, and it was just a good experience, and it was a good like you said, it was a good camaraderie time for the both of us. We laughed about it after.
It's the things that add to it.
Yeah.
It's the things those little things that add to it. You get into calls for service
But
like that. There's no other job like this. I mean,
yeah, and I think it's also very, very important, to just clarify that we know, at least for us, we know that when we go somewhere, whether it's a T stop or it's a call or it's whatever the case may be, maybe you pulled up on something, that we have each other's back, and we trust each other and to the fullest, and we just know, hey, dude, this guy got me just the way I got him, and we're gonna roll with that, till whatever it comes to, you know. But I did want to say, thank you guys for joining this podcast today, the first ever podcast.
maybe
It
might be the last.
yeah, it might be the last.
Let's see what happens.
But I think
I want to see the comments section.
Yeah,
you know those memes.
yeah, yeah.
Everyone goes to the comments
after this, But I do, I do want to thank you guys, from the bottom of my heart. I know, you guys did this against your will, Yeah,
I'm looking at the guy back there being held
but,
at gunpoint.
I appreciate it. I know this is not your guys', safety cushion. It's not something you guys do every day, and neither do I. But it's something that an endeavor that I wanted to take, and something that I've been talking about, for a while, and something I wanted to do, and I appreciate you guys being on here on the first episode and just showing everybody, what it's like for us to hang out and what we do, on a day-to-day basis. And,
well, after you explain that, the whole premise of this thing and what you're trying to do is truly help people. I understand. I couldn't say no at that point.
yeah, and I appreciate, it's really, yeah, it's really, for everybody, for first responders, for anybody, anybody that's, I just want to humanize the badge, in a way, and let people know, that we go through it too, just like everybody else, and let them know that, that we're also here. Like I said earlier, anybody that needs anything, any support, we're here, and I truly appreciate, you guys being here today, and just showing up for me. It shows again, the camaraderie that we have, and the good partnership, and how close and how bonded we are. And I truly do appreciate it.
I'm happy to help out in any way I can.
Yeah.
Well, I've known him forever, so it's hard to say no, even to his stupid ideas sometimes. It's hard to pull the reins sometimes.
A podcast as if we were sitting in the patio anyway, just having a chat,
Right?
I guess. And now
Just
we're
record.
inviting
Just hit the
the
record
free
button.
world to look.
Well, this is a lot more PG than we normally act.
I know my pants are still on for some reason.
Yeah, yeah. They're probably gonna come off after the camera comes off as well. But thank you guys for showing the support. Thank you guys for showing up for us on the first episode. And please subscribe. Please show us support. Once again, show some support to our sponsors as well. Code 4 Pomade. Trust me, you can't go wrong with it. Your hair's gonna look just as good as yeah, like Sanchez. Look at that haircut. Look at that. Look at that
God,
pomade. So, and not just that, put that on the brocha.
You're making me blush.
Look at that. Clean cut, good hair, good brocha. Code 4 Pomade. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys. I look forward to the next episode. We're gonna have a lot of good interviews. We're gonna, today was more of a, just kind of fill it out, see where we're going with it. But we're definitely gonna have a lot.
I'm sure there were
cool
hundreds
stories.
of thousands of mistakes that were made.
Oh, 100%. It's only gonna get better, and we're gonna do a lot more. Full interviews. We're gonna talk about crazy stories, and just go from there. So, thank you guys.